Hello friends, thank you for being here. Each of you makes this channel alive and special. Thanks to your support, I can share stories, thoughts, and emotions that hopefully resonate in your heart. If you have just started exploring my content, welcome. Real-life stories are waiting for you here. Subscribe, like, and share your impressions. Your voice is very important to me. I'd spent 10 years away in Singapore, always imagining the day I'd come back to surprise my daughter, Hannah, and finally meet my granddaughter, Grace, who had just turned 4. I had bought them a lovely house in Denver, and there I was, quietly unlocking the door, trying not to make any noise. But then I heard my son-in-law's voice, clear as could be, saying, "Clean that mess up faster, or you'll get another beating tonight." I stood there, completely frozen. Peeking through the door, I saw Hannah on her hands and knees, picking up broken plates with trembling fingers. She wore a filthy apron that said, "Hamilton Family Property." I couldn't believe it. Who would dare treat my daughter like this? I was furious. I'm Jacob Bennett, and right then, I decided to step in and protect my daughter. All those years spent working like crazy in Singapore's tech industry had led to this moment. Every sleepless night was worth it for this day. I'd built cutting-edge data centers under the scorching sun, saving every dime for this return home. I had planned to surprise Hannah and finally meet Grace face to face. As my taxi rolled through the familiar Denver neighborhood toward Cherry Creek Drive, I soaked it all in. The red brick houses, the charming white fences, even the giant oak tree Hannah used to climb still stood there. I'd bought this house for her long ago, before Singapore, so she'd always feel safe and at home. There I was, hands shaking as I fumbled for the key in my pocket, knowing Hannah didn't have a clue I was coming. I couldn't wait to see her reaction. The door creaked open and I entered, all set to shout, "Surprise!" But I couldn't get the words out. A voice, dripping with menace, sent chills through me. "Clean it up quick, or more beatings tonight." I stood there, stomach turning cold with fear. Through the narrow opening in the hallway, there was Hannah, scrubbing the floor. That awful apron that said, "Hamilton Family Property," felt like a punch to the gut. My daughter, treated like she was trapped, without a place of her own. Then there was Huxley, shifting from aggressor to gentleman in a heartbeat, his smile as fake as polished shoes. "Dad, what a surprise seeing you here," he exclaimed, his fake warmth trying to cover what I'd just witnessed, as if Hannah was just helping out. Hannah got up quickly, ripping off that awful apron and hiding it behind a cushion, moving frantically. She forced a smile, but her eyes betrayed her. "Dad," she said quietly, "I'm fine, really, just a little tired." Then I noticed Grace, half hidden behind Hannah. Her big brown eyes looked at me like I was a complete stranger. It hurt, because in reality, I was. She'd only known me as a face on a screen during video calls. "Mommy," Grace whispered, "who's that man?" Her soft voice cut deep. I crouched to her level, trying to be calm and gentle. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm Grandpa Jacob. We've talked on the TV, remember? I was working far away, but now I'm here to see you and Mommy." Grace held on to Hannah like she was her lifeline. That's when I noticed it. A dark bruise wrapped around Hannah's arm. "Hannah," I started, but she quickly pulled her sleeve down, silently begging me not to bring it up. Huxley clapped a hand on my shoulder, his laugh hollow. "She's a bit clumsy, you know how it goes," he said, trying to brush it off. But I knew better. My once vibrant, confident daughter was no longer there. In her place was someone who recoiled at her husband's words, and my granddaughter seemed afraid, more like a shadow than a child. I stood there, realizing just how naive I'd been. What had actually happened to the family I thought was safe? I feared the truth was even darker than what I'd just learned. It was late afternoon, and I saw my opportunity. Huxley headed out for what he claimed was a business meeting, but the whiskey on his breath told a different story. The house felt calm without him, especially since Grace was napping. Hannah was seated at the kitchen table, staring at her hands. In the light, the bruises and marks where someone had gripped her stood out starkly, almost like she'd been bound. I eased into the chair next to her and spoke softly. "Hannah, what's happening? How'd you get those bruises?" "Don't brush this off as clumsiness. I was there when you grew up. You were the most nimble kid in the neighborhood." She winced and hugged herself defensively. "It's nothing, Dad. Just some work accidents. Been busy with all the household stuff," she mumbled, her voice shaky, eyes avoiding mine. This wasn't my daughter who used to hold her own during our lively Sunday debates. I reached out, taking her hand gently. "Hannah Rose Bennett," I said, like I did when she was little. "Remember my promise when you were born? I swore I'd always keep you safe, and that promise hasn't changed." That was all it took for her to break down, tears spilling as she reverted to that scared little girl. "Oh, Daddy," she cried, using her old childhood name for me. "I've really messed up. After Grace was born, I got really sick mentally," she said, pointing to her head. "The doctor called it postpartum depression. There were days I couldn't even get out of bed, let alone take care of Grace. Huxley's family said they'd handle things while I recovered." Her voice fell to a whisper. "I was on such strong medication, Dad. I barely knew what was happening. They brought me documents to sign, called them insurance or medical paperwork. I signed everything because I trusted them." It broke my heart seeing her suffer through this memory. "What kind of documents?" I asked her. "Stuff like property transfers and power of attorney forms. They assured me it was just until I got better." When the fog finally cleared and she saw the reality of what she'd signed, she looked around the kitchen belonging to someone else. "They claimed I'd handed over my house and was now just doing chores to pay off their supposed help," she continued. "They said if I tried to fight back or leave, they'd declare me unfit and take Grace." Her voice cracked painfully. "So I stayed, serving them in my own home for 3 years, Dad." She went to a kitchen drawer and took out a thick manila folder. "I kept everything. The medical records, those papers I signed, everything. I hoped someone could help me make sense of it all." As I opened the folder, one thought rang out. Messing with my daughter was their biggest mistake. That night, I spread Hannah's medical documents across the kitchen table like I was piecing together a mystery. What I uncovered chilled me to the bone. The timeline revealed she'd signed those transfer papers on March 15th, the same day her psychiatrist had increased her antidepressants to their highest level due to a severe breakdown. Next morning, I went directly to Denver General Hospital where Hannah was treated. Dr. Patricia Morrison, her psychiatrist then, agreed to meet when I explained the situation. "Mr. Bennett," Dr. Morrison said, pulling out Hannah's file. "I remember her case well. It was one of the toughest postpartum episodes I've managed." She scanned through her notes, growing more concerned. "During that March, Hannah was barely herself. We had her on strong medications like sertraline, lorazepam, and quetiapine, which greatly affect cognitive function and judgment." "In everyday terms, what does that mean?" I asked, dreading her answer. "It means she wasn't in any condition to make legal decisions." Dr. Morrison laid it out clear as day. With the amount of medication Hannah was on, she would have been completely out of it. You can imagine she'd be in no state to deal with birthday cards, let alone signing any important paperwork. Then he turned to call in Rebecca Walsh, the nurse who had spent a lot of time caring for Hannah. When Rebecca walked in and caught wind of what was going on, her face said it all. She was visibly upset. I remember those times so well. Hannah was so doped up recognizing her own mom was a struggle some days. She'd gaze at folks as if there was a thick fog between them. I distinctly recall one time trying to help her just sign a get well card. Rebecca mentioned this card her church friends gave her. Hannah's writing was so scribbled and shaky, they had to physically guide her hand to write her name. There's just no way she could grasp complicated legal jargon. Dr. Morrison pulled up Hannah's medication records and pointed out, "Look here, Mr. Bennett. From the 10th to the 20th of March, she was at her worst. We almost had to admit her to the hospital since she wasn't even coherent enough for basic commands, and that's the period they roped her into signing legal documents. I was livid. I said, "If what you're saying is true, then this isn't just wrong. It's downright illegal." Dr. Morrison nodded firmly. "A person on such strong psychiatric medication can't be expected to consent to something as major as a property transfer," she stated. Rebecca chimed in, "I'd testify anywhere that during those days, Hannah wasn't able to even say what day it was, let alone grasp the enormity of handing over her home." Dr. Morrison gave me a detailed account of Hannah's treatment during those critical days. She assured me, "Mr. Bennett, those signatures are worthless from a legal perspective. No judge would uphold a contract signed by someone in her condition. What the Hamiltons did is nothing short of exploiting and mistreating an elder." Walking out with that document in hand, for the first time in ages, I felt a glimmer of hope. It seemed we finally had ammunition to fight back. The Hamiltons thought they were clever using an elderly woman's vulnerabilities to their advantage, but now I had the means to turn the tables. I knew I'd need legal backup, so I hit the web for some lawyer recommendations and landed on Webb and Associates, a firm known for handling elder abuse and exploitation cases. Caroline Webb had built a reputation for taking on and winning tough cases against influential families that take advantage of vulnerable individuals. Her office was up on the 15th floor in a downtown Denver skyscraper, boasting some breathtaking views of the Rockies. Caroline herself was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, with sleek silver hair neatly pinned back and eyes that missed nothing. When I arrived and sat down, she motioned for me to take a seat across from her large desk. "Mr. Bennett, I need you to spill the beans on your daughter's case, right down to the nitty-gritty." I laid it all out. The humiliating tasks, Hannah's struggle with postpartum depression, the suspicious timing of the document signing, and Dr. Morrison's insights into Hannah's mental state. Caroline jotted everything down on a yellow legal pad, probing who was present when it all went down. After hearing the full story, she leaned back and said, "Mr. Bennett, what you're describing is a textbook case of exploitation. The Hamiltons' actions aren't just heinous, they're criminal." She spread out Hannah's medical charts next to the property papers I brought. "Your daughter signed away a $400,000 home while under such heavy medication she couldn't even tell who her mom was. This is a slam dunk to get those contracts voided even for a rookie lawyer." "But your case has more going on," Caroline continued, her focus sharpening. "The Hamiltons didn't just trick Hannah. They've been inflicting emotional trauma for a while, putting her in a position of unpaid servitude and threatening the custody of her child. This isn't just exploitation, it's human trafficking, Mr. Bennett." As I fully grasped the hell Hannah had been through, I felt my pulse quicken. "What do we do now?" I asked. Caroline had her game face on. "We don't just get the house back, we make sure the Hamiltons pay for what they've done. We've got to play it smart," she said firmly, grabbing a fresh notepad to plan our course of action. "First step, we give them 48 hours to return the house and cover damages. People often panic when confronted and may just settle. If they're stubborn and don't budge, we push forward with a civil lawsuit for the house and damages alongside a criminal case with the FBI for human trafficking and exploitation. Lastly, we alert the Denver Post. Media attention can turn the tide, especially when all eyes are watching." The Hamilton family didn't back down, convinced they could intimidate their way past this. But Caroline was tenacious, and I was prepared to do whatever it took to protect my daughter. When Caroline and I left her office, we felt a shift. For once, it seemed like we had the upper hand. With 25 years of legal expertise, Caroline knew the courtroom game inside out. As she outlined her plan to dismantle the Hamiltons' grip, I could feel we were about to hit them where it counted. The morning after was tense, but I was ready. We headed to the Hamilton estate, a 3-story monument to their wealth, all grand stone and towering columns that screamed old money. Inside, portraits of Hamilton ancestors, likely just as entitled as their heirs, lined the hallways. We found William Hamilton seated at a desk worth as much as my house. He exuded arrogance, barely looking up as we entered. "Bennett," he snorted, half rising from his seat. "I hear you're unhappy with the situation." I stayed composed. "You mean enslaving my daughter as your unpaid servant?" I countered, my anger simmering beneath the surface. He chuckled like nothing mattered. "We have influence here, Bennett. Our reach stretches from the courts to the police. You really think you can fight us?" Caroline didn't skip a beat. Her voice was calm and commanding. "Mr. Hamilton, these are Hannah's medical records. She wasn't mentally fit to sign anything, and you knew that." A flicker of doubt crossed his face as he glanced at the documents, but he tried to brush it off. "She agreed to the arrangement voluntarily. We've got witnesses." Meeting his gaze, I leaned in. "That's a federal crime, Hamilton. You've crossed a line." William faltered further as Caroline unveiled more of their shady dealings. He barked threats, but it became clear he was panicking. His son burst in, full of bluster, but Caroline remained steady, laying down the law. 48 hours to make things right, or we'd go to the feds. William fumed, his threats getting louder, but I saw it differently. They couldn't break us. The real battle was just starting. As we left, Caroline gave my arm a reassuring squeeze, telling me that their threats had only armed us more. Time was running out for the Hamiltons, and their silence was as revealing as a confession. They had cash, but we had justice on our side, ready to take our fight wherever it led. "Family tries to take daughter's property," began journalist Maria Santos's article, diving deep into the mess. She laid out every incriminating detail: Hannah's medical files, the suspicious timing of the property handover, and the grim reality Hannah endured for years. There was even a picture of our modest home on Cherry Creek Drive, dwarfed by the sprawling Hamilton mansion, perfectly capturing our David versus Goliath struggle. It didn't take long for the story to explode across social media like wildfire. Justice for Hannah became a trending topic on Twitter, with thousands of people joining in, sharing their own stories about elder abuse and exploitation. Local TV crews flocked to our neighborhood, camping outside our front door and the Hamiltons' place. That afternoon, Mrs. Rodriguez from next door swung by, carrying a casserole and teary-eyed. "Jacob, I didn't know what Hannah had been going through. Everyone's talking about it," she said. The whole neighborhood was rallying together, ready to help. Overnight, a GoFundMe appeared, bringing in funds to cover Hannah's legal expenses. The Denver Women's Shelter even stepped in to offer counseling. Strangers stopped me on the street, outraged at the Hamiltons' actions. The real victory came at 2 p.m. when Caroline called, her voice buzzing with excitement. "Jacob, get down to the courthouse," she exclaimed. "Judge Elizabeth Barnes just ruled in our favor. Hannah's getting her house back today." At the Denver County Courthouse, Judge Barnes's decisive words echoed through the room packed with people. The evidence made it clear. Hannah Bennett Hamilton wasn't in a position to authorize anything, so the property transfer was revoked immediately. The Hamiltons' lawyers looked stunned. William Hamilton's face turned a deep shade of purple from anger, and security had to intervene to restrain Huxley as he erupted into a furious outburst. Judge Barnes continued, slapping a temporary restraining order on them. The Hamiltons were forbidden from contacting or approaching Hannah or her family. Ignoring this order would mean jail time for them. A couple of hours later, I watched from our porch as the Denver police brought Hannah and Grace home. Hannah had just one suitcase, all she had from her time with the Hamiltons. Grace was clutching an old teddy bear, her eyes wide with curiosity and confusion about why the police were there. "Daddy," Grace whispered to Hannah as they climbed the stairs. "Are we really going to live here now?" "Yes, sweetheart," Hannah answered, her voice filled with emotion. "We're home. We're finally home." That evening, sitting around the kitchen table with Mrs. Rodriguez's casserole in front of us, my phone rang. Huxley's number appeared on the screen. "Pick it up," Caroline suggested, ready with her phone to record. Let's hear what nonsense he has. I put the call on speaker. Huxley's voice, thick with alcohol and venom, cut through. It's not over, old man. You think you've won? We'll destroy you. You haven't seen anything yet. Are you threatening us? I calmly asked. I'm making a promise, Huxley snarled. Enjoy your little victory while you can. Soon, you'll regret not staying in Singapore. The call ended abruptly. Caroline stopped the recording with a satisfied smile. Congratulations, Jacob. He's just dug himself into a deeper hole. That night, as Hannah tucked Grace into her own room for the first time in 3 years, a feeling of hope returned to me, one I hadn't felt in a long time. Still, Huxley's threats echoed in my mind. Sure, we'd won this battle, but the war was far from over. That first week back in our home was like living a long-awaited dream, starting each day with the sound of Grace's laughter in the halls, a sound that had been missing for far too long. Hannah wandered through the house as if she were rediscovering a forgotten place, taking it all in. One morning, catching me making pancakes, she said, "Dad, I forgot how good coffee tastes when you're not worried someone's about to start yelling." She slowly began to open up, getting more comfortable and trusting that I wasn't going anywhere. The turning point came on a Tuesday afternoon. I found her struggling to ride a bike, clearly too small for her. "Need a hand, sweetheart?" I asked, crouching down beside her. She looked at me with those determined yet frustrated eyes just like Hannah's. "I want to ride like the big kids, but this bike is too baby-ish," she explained. That same afternoon, we got her a brand new bright pink bike with training wheels and streamers. Seeing Grace's face light up with happiness as she rode around the driveway made all the long, restless nights in Singapore worth it. I dove into repairing the rundown house. Fixing loose floorboards, stopping leaks, and painting over peeling walls kept me occupied and let me keep an eye on my family. I didn't expect Hannah to jump in and help, but she did. Together, we spruced up Grace's room, fresh yellow paint, new curtains, and flowers planted out front. "Remember when you taught me to use a drill?" Hannah asked while we were putting up Grace's bookshelf one night. I was 12, and Mom was convinced I'd drill straight through the wall. I laughed. "Well, you did, 3 times. Your mom made me crash on the couch for a week." The best part was our evenings. We shared real family dinners brimming with chit-chat and laughter, not the awkward silence from before. Grace would excitedly chatter about her day, flaunting her drawings or begging me to read her favorite story about a brave little mouse. One night she called me Grandpa for the first time, just as natural as could be. "Can you read me the mouse story again?" she asked with hopeful eyes. My heart swelled. "Of course, sweetheart, as many times as you want." Catching my eye, Hannah shot me a genuine smile, a far cry from the strained ones from when I first got there. Later, as we did the dishes together, she said quietly, "Dad, I forgot how happiness felt. Thanks for bringing it back." For 10 wonderful days we lived in this joyful bubble. Grace began to regularly call me Grandpa. Hannah's bruises started to fade, and that haunted look in her eyes was slowly disappearing. Our family was coming back together. But then, on Thursday night, as I was tucking Grace into bed, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Don't pick it up," Hannah warned, concern all over her face. But I did. Huxley's voice was calm and menacing, much scarier than his usual drunken tantrums. "How's your little family reunion going, old man?" he sneered. "Don't get too comfortable. Some storms sneak up before you even notice." The call disconnected, leaving me staring at the phone while Grace asked, "Grandpa, who was that? You seem scared." I forced a smile and kissed her forehead. "No one important, sweetheart. Just a wrong number." But even as I turned off her light, the feeling that our peaceful days were numbered wouldn't leave me. 2 nights later, a huge storm roared through Denver, shaking windows and drenching the house with rain. As I lay in bed, listening to the howling wind, something sounded off. Slow, deliberate steps on the porch. Peeking through the curtains, I saw someone skulking around, carrying what looked like a gas can. The smell of gasoline seeped through the walls. Huxley was making his threat real. I grabbed my phone and called 911 as I sprinted down the hall. "Someone's trying to set my house on Cherry Creek Drive on fire," I nearly shouted to the dispatcher. "Officers are on their way. Get your family out now," she urged. Before I could reach Hannah's room, I heard the fire roaring to life outside. An orange glow danced through the windows as flames encircled the house. "You destroyed my family!" Huxley screamed, crazed, beating the storm's noise. "Now I'll destroy yours! Burn it all to the ground!" I dashed into Hannah's room, shaking her awake. "Hannah, we have to move now. The house is on fire." She jumped up, all senses on high alert. "Grace!" Together, we rushed to Grace's room. She was already up, crying, with smoke creeping in under her door. The hallway filled with thick smoke, burning our eyes and lungs. "Mommy, I'm scared," Grace sobbed, clinging to Hannah. "I know." All right. So Grandpa Jacob was all set on getting us out of there. The front entrance was ablaze, so we aimed for the back. But as we reached the kitchen, Huxley was there, glaring at the sliding door, the firelight making him even scarier. He had a crowbar, yelling, "No one leaves! If I can't have my family, nobody will." He smashed the glass. I quickly put Hannah and Grace behind me, grabbing a kitchen knife. "Hannah, Grace, go through the dining room side window," Hannah yelled back. "I'm not abandoning you." But I insisted. "Go now, keep Grace safe." Huxley, full of rage, swung the crowbar at me, but he was too sloppy, giving me the chance to dodge and tackle him. We both slammed into the cabinets, my knife skittering across the floor. Panting, I said, "You think you'll harm my family, huh? You'll have to get past me first." While Huxley had the advantage of being younger and stronger, I had years of bottled-up anger driving me. All those nights spent overseas, every tear Hannah cried, and the moments I missed with Grace, they fueled my fight. Just as I got Huxley pinned to the floor, the blaring sirens of emergency vehicles broke through the chaos. I caught sight of flashing red and blue lights amid the commotion from outside. Fire trucks and police rolled up quickly. "Denver police, everyone get out!" yelled the officers as firefighters charged in, battling the flames. I dragged a stunned Huxley towards the back, while the fire crew stormed through the front, hoses at the ready. Out in the pouring rain, I saw Hannah and Grace, safe but shaken, on a neighbor's lawn. The second Grace saw me, she darted over. "Grandpa, I was so scared we'd lost you." I crouched down, wrapping them both in a tight hug as medics checked us over and the cops slapped cuffs on Huxley. The firefighters managed to stop the house from burning down entirely, arriving just in time to save it from complete ruin. "It's over," I whispered to Hannah, watching Huxley get hauled away. "He won't hurt you ever again." Fast forward half a year, and I'm sitting in the packed Denver County Courthouse, where everyone's been invested in this case since day one. Judge Elizabeth Barnes was laying down the law. Huxley was sitting there in an orange prison suit, looking like a shadow of the man I used to know. "Mr. Huxley Hamilton," the judge declared, "you're found guilty on several counts: arson, attempted murder, domestic violence, and fraud. You're sentenced to 15 years in federal prison without parole." Her gavel came down, sealing his fate. Huxley didn't even flinch as he was led away in cuffs. Just a couple weeks back, William Hamilton was sentenced too. He got 8 years for exploiting vulnerable adults and for conspiracy. The Hamilton family's reputation collapsed overnight. Their assets frozen, properties seized, scandalous downfall. Caroline squeezed my hand. "It's finished, Jacob. They can't harm anyone now." We received a substantial restitution, $2 million for the ordeal we went through. The Hamiltons' cars, houses, businesses, everything was liquidated to compensate us. That money went into rebuilding. Our new home had more room, bigger windows, a chic kitchen, and a master suite where I finally unpacked my belongings from Singapore for good. I wasn't going anywhere. "Are you sure, Dad?" Hannah asked when I told her my plans. "You achieved so much in Singapore." I replied, "My life is here, with you guys, not in Singapore." The best addition to our new life was a backyard playground for Grace, with swings, a slide, and a sandbox. Most evenings you'd see me gently pushing her on the swings as Hannah tended to her flower garden nearby. "Higher, Grandpa," Grace would laugh, her giggles echoing through the neighborhood. She turned into this bright, confident 5-year-old who knew she was loved. She'd naturally call me Grandpa and never fall asleep without hearing the brave little mouse story. Hannah was also blossoming again. The haunted look she used to wear was replaced by the lively, determined gaze of the strong woman I always knew. She began taking night classes, aiming for a degree in social work. She said, "I want to help other women who've been through what I did. I want to show them that there's always hope." That evening, while I nudged Grace on her swing, Hannah walked out of the house with 3 glasses of lemonade. She settled on the porch steps, watching with a beaming smile. "Grandpa," Grace said, slowing her swing and looking at me with serious eyes, "are you going to stay with us forever and ever?" I stopped the swing and got to her eye level, seeing her mother's eyes staring back at me. "Forever and ever, sweetheart. There's nothing that could pull me away." Hannah called from the porch, her voice filled with gratitude. "Dad, thank you for saving us. Thank you for not giving up." As the sun disappeared over Denver and Grace took off to chase fireflies, the realization struck me. This simple, perfect evening with my family was more precious than any achievement I ever had in Singapore. Looking back at my life, I realized how close I was to losing everything that truly mattered to me. For 10 years, I pursued career ambitions in Singapore, oblivious to the silent struggles my daughter faced. Let this be a lesson. Don't let professional aspirations overshadow the needs of your loved ones. This real-life episode taught me that when we're needed the most, a higher power guides us where we need to be. It's no coincidence that I ended up returning to Denver just when I was most needed. The Hamilton family thought they could exploit a woman in a vulnerable situation without any repercussions. What they didn't count on was that a greater justice was watching, and justice tends to find its way. Hannah's strength during those tough times revealed to me that faith can sustain us through the harshest storms. These stories aren't solely my tales. They're about the unyielding bond of family. Seeing Grace hiding shyly behind her mother, uneasy around a grandfather she hardly knew, hit me hard with the reality of my absence. Yet love has an incredible way of healing. If you're working far from home, remember that no paycheck can ever equate to the time spent with your kids and grandkids. Achievement is hollow if your family's suffering in your absence. Just a few more weeks, and this narrative could have taken a vastly different path. The biggest joy wasn't winning in court or purchasing a new home. It was the warmth that came with Grace calling me Grandpa with sincerity. These grandpa tales remind us that being present is the most invaluable gift we can offer our families. I share these stories to motivate other grandfathers to focus on what truly matters. Don't wait for something dire to steer you back home. Don't assume everything's all right just because they're not saying otherwise. Never doubt the lengths to which a parent's love will stretch when their child calls. This story reshaped our lives. Hannah found her resilience. Grace realized she was safe and cherished. I learned that home isn't a location. It's the people who love you unconditionally. If this story touched you, feel free to share your own family stories in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming tales of family love and strength. Your story could be the one someone else needs to hear today. On Christmas morning, my son Silas rang me up and said, "Dad, maybe it's best if you don't come this year." He was referring to my 19-year-old son, Danny, who has autism. I didn't protest. I just said, "I understand," and hung up the phone. That evening, Danny and I created our own Christmas. Before I knew it, my phone was buzzing nonstop, 25 missed calls. I hadn't expected that our quiet celebration would turn into the story that changed everything. I'm so happy you're here to listen to this story. Before I continue, I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. On Christmas morning, the house on Cedar Avenue was filled with the scent of cinnamon rolls, sunlight spilling through the kitchen windows. I watched as my son Danny's agile fingers danced over the keys of the old upright piano in the living room. His autism sometimes made life overwhelming, but when Danny played, the world seemed to fall into place. He'd been up since dawn, not for gifts, but because Christmas morning was all about the music. He'd already sailed through 3 different versions of White Christmas, each more mesmerizing than the last. His talent wasn't just about hitting the right notes. He transformed melodies into something uniquely his own. "That's just wonderful, son," I said, while brushing flour from my hands. At 59, I treasured these moments more than ever. It had been 4 years since my wife, Grace, passed away, leaving just Danny and me to maneuver through life in our old Denver home. True, some days were tough, but cozy mornings like this were proof that we were doing okay. As Danny got into a jazzy, silent night on the piano, the phone buzzed. I almost let it go, figuring it was another Christmas call nudging us to family gatherings, but today was all about chilling out at home. The screen showed Silas's name, though, and he's my eldest, so I picked up. "Hey, Dad," he greeted me in his usual way, trying to keep things smooth whenever Danny was mentioned. "Merry Christmas, Silas. How are Scarlett and Olivia doing?" I asked. "They're good. Listen, there's something I need to talk about regarding tonight." His words hung in the air, mixed with background noise from what I guessed was Scarlett's buzzing family getting ready for their big dinner. Silence followed, the kind that suggested he thought maybe he should just stay home this year. Just him, not Danny, not your brother, only him. We didn't need more words to decode that. His intent was fairly blatant. Silas, with a touch of politeness, hinted Danny should sit out this time. His courteous voice somehow landed heavy, like he was ironing out a schedule wrinkle, not deciding to exclude his own brother from Christmas. I glanced at Danny, engrossed in his music, blissfully in his world, and unaware of being talked about as an inconvenient guest. His dark hair flopped as he was deep into a tricky part, moving to his own beat. "I get it," I said softly. And I did. I saw that my eldest was embarrassed. I saw how Danny's uniqueness put Silas on guard with his in-laws. I understood convenience often trumps compassion, how hiding seems easier than standing up. "Thanks, Dad. I knew you'd get it. Maybe we can catch up next week, just us." After we hung up, his suggestion lingered like the bitter aftertaste of burnt coffee. Danny looked up, eyes beaming from the thrill music always gave him. "Dad, do you want to hear the new song I wrote for Mom?" he asked, with a familiar mix of excitement and longing. My heart tightened up. He'd crafted something new for Grace each Christmas, playing it for her photo on the mantel. This wasn't music to keep wrapped in the solitude Silas had in mind. Moving to join Danny on the piano bench, right where Grace loved to listen, I had decisions to make. "Are we having Christmas dinner with Silas tonight, Dad?" Danny asked, looking hopeful, his question hanging there. "Keep the act going another year or start changing things?" "You know, Danny, we'll have our own Christmas." Instantly, his face shone bright with unfiltered joy, reminding me he's worth every bit of standing up for. By midday, I'd settled it in my mind. Danny deserved to be more than overlooked because his brother struggled to accept him. Grabbing my coat, I turned to him. "Let's get your jacket, son. We're going out." Not far from us was the Riverside Community Center, a modest place hosting everything from elderly yoga to kids' party blowouts. Helen Martinez, from a couple of streets over, had tipped us off about a Christmas potluck for folks riding solo this holiday. It sounded just right for the kind of Christmas we'd make. Helen's face lit up as soon as we stepped through those double doors. "Danny, I'm so glad you're here." Her sweater, loud and festive with a jingling reindeer, radiated warmth far beyond any extravagant family feast. Inside, the main space buzzed with soft chatter as about 30 people gathered around tables. The food spread was a delightful patchwork: homemade casseroles snuggled up to store-bought cookies, with someone's green bean salad standing out. This was no fancy society affair. It was where real people gathered. There were elderly widows, single parents catching breaks from work, and college kids who couldn't make it home. Initially, Danny clung close, taking in the strange chatter and festive tunes playing from a portable speaker. But Helen, expert at making anyone feel part of things, was there to ease him in. "Danny, your mom mentioned you're pretty good on the piano," she said gently. "There's an old one in the corner if you're in the mood to play. No need to feel any pressure." I glanced over at the well-worn piano, highlighted by the softly twinkling lights around it. A little poinsettia was perched on top, and sheet music was spread across the bench. Danny's eyes lit up with that familiar spark. "If you feel like playing, go for it," I told him. He approached the piano, like reuniting with a dear friend. His fingers brushed over the keys, getting reacquainted, adjusting to the slightly off-pitch middle C. Without a fuss, he started to play. He began with Silent Night, but morphed it into something distinctly his own. Danny added jazz harmonies I'd never imagined, layering melodies that seemed to wrap around the room like a warm hug. Every conversation halted. Forks stopped mid-motion. Even the boisterous children playing nearby went quiet. As the last note lingered, there was a brief, stunned silence before room-filling applause erupted. This wasn't just polite claps. It was genuine admiration for something exceptional. Mrs. Patterson, a kind elderly neighbor, whispered, "That was breathtaking, truly beautiful." Helen's eyes were glistening with tears. "Danny, what you gave us was a true Christmas gift," she remarked, her phone aloft, making me realize she had captured everything, creating more than just a memory. Later on, as we helped tidy up, people kept approaching Danny with genuine warmth. No awkward looks or whispered talks about his condition, just pure appreciation for the happiness he'd sparked. Walking home in the glow of the streetlights, Danny hummed his arrangement as snowflakes began to fall. For the first time that day, I was comforted knowing we made the right choice. That feeling was short-lived, though, when we walked into our house and my phone was flashing with countless notifications. By the time I woke up on Boxing Day, I'd missed 25 calls. My phone buzzed incessantly. It was only 7:30 a.m., and messages were flooding in: Facebook, texts, voicemails. It had been non-stop since we got home. Helen had put the video online. She titled it, "Christmas Miracle Boy," simply saying, "The most beautiful gifts often come from the most beautiful hearts." This young man made our Christmas truly special. The reaction was astounding. Overnight, the video garnered 50,000 views, shared 1,000 times, with 500 comments, and the numbers were climbing. Jennifer from Ohio said, "This made me cry while at work." A Portland music teacher wrote, "What an incredible gift." People from all over were touched by the moment. Parents of autistic children shared their stories. Musicians praised Danny's natural talent. Everyone was moved by the pure joy he brought. By noon, the video exploded across platforms. It took off on TikTok, appearing on YouTube with titles like "Autistic Teen's Holiday Piano Performance Brings the Magic." The hashtag #Christmas Miracle Boy trended, starting in Denver, then across Colorado, and soon nationwide. Danny wandered into the kitchen around 10, unaware of the online frenzy. "Morning, Dad," he said. "Can we make pancakes?" "Sure, son," I said, trying to keep calm amid the avalanche of calls. Channel 7 News rang. "Mr. Sullivan," a reporter started, "this is Maria Rodriguez from Denver 7. We'd love to feature your son's amazing performance. Would you consider an interview?" An interview for Danny. On TV, no less. Watching my son blissfully mixing pancake batter, humming his tune from the day before, I realized millions were now part of the joy he'd shared. To him, it seemed like any other day, just playing another tune. I mentioned to the reporter I'd ponder over it, but they kept dialing back. The Denver Post wanted to feature us, and Good Morning Colorado asked me on their show. Even radio stations, podcasts, and some talent scout from LA somehow got my contact. "Dad, why is your phone making so much noise?" Danny questioned, clutching his ears as another call buzzed. "Folks really dig your tunes, champ. They truly love it." Danny's face gleamed with an untainted delight. "That's awesome. Can I play more songs for them?" His innocence tugged at my heartstrings. While strangers were noticing Danny's flair, his own brother once wished he'd disappear. The irony was hard to ignore. Throughout the day, I spoke to reporters thrice and nixed a dozen more. The narrative had stretched way beyond Colorado. Now, the Christmas Miracle Boy was viral with over 2 million hits. Clips of Danny playing were circulating in tongues I didn't even recognize. As I skimmed through the supportive messages, a familiar number flashed on my phone. It was Silas. Hesitation gripped me, unlike before. "Dad, we've got to talk," he said, his voice softer, tinged with a hint of remorse. "I'm all ears." "We've seen the clip. Everyone has. Scarlett's been inundated with calls about Danny." He paused. "Perhaps we misjudged." 10 days later, Silas called with an unexpected invitation. "Dad, Olivia's birthday is this weekend. She's eager for Grandpa and Uncle Danny to join," he said. "Scarlett and I talked it over, and we'd love for you both to come." No mentions of the video or Christmas, just a straightforward invite that almost seemed natural. I peered out the kitchen window, watching Danny shape a snowman, his cheeks red from cold and happiness. Though 3 more news channels sought interviews, we passed them up. Danny was content being himself. "Are you certain about this, Silas?" "Absolutely, Dad. Olivia's been counting the days. She insists on Uncle Danny playing Happy Birthday on the piano." By Saturday afternoon, we arrived at Silas's house in Highlands Ranch, a grand suburban place with balloons and snazzy cars in the driveway. Scarlett greeted us with a smile that felt a bit forced. "You made it," she said, trying to sound cheerful. Olivia, however, was genuinely thrilled, running up to hug my legs. "Grandpa, Uncle Danny, you're here!" She latched onto Danny's hand, chatting away about her shiny bike and the chocolate cake inside. The backyard buzzed with families from Scarlett's country club, a crowd of parents whose kids attended Olivia's private school. Everyone was polite, though I caught snippets of whispers and saw how chatter stopped when Danny quietly hummed or stimmed. "That's the kid from the clip," someone whispered. Everything was smooth for about an hour. Danny joined the activities, and his gentle nature won over even the skeptical kids. Olivia, meanwhile, was his personal tour guide, proudly introducing him as her amazing uncle with magical piano skills. Then Scarlett announced it was lunchtime. The main table looked immaculate, with matching dinnerware, cloth napkins, and winter flowers. Ample room for all the adults and older kids. I assumed Danny would sit next to me. "We arranged a quieter spot for Danny," Scarlett mentioned, nodding toward the kitchen door. "A place where he can be more at ease, away from the uproar." I looked over, and my heart dropped. Just through the kitchen door sat a lonely plastic chair at the counter, a paper plate, and a juice box instead of the fancy drinks outside, off by himself, like he was something to hide. "You're treating him like he's something to be ashamed of," I blurted out before I could stop. Silas stepped forward with that calming hand gesture I'd grown to detest. "Dad, the other parents. Some kids just don't get it. They've never been around someone like Danny. So we thought making things simpler for everyone was the best bet. Simpler for who, exactly?" I gripped Danny's hand tightly, my anger making my voice shaky. "You haven't learned a thing, not a single thing." "Grandpa." Olivia's soft voice cut through my frustration. She stood there in the doorway, tears staining her face. Why is Grandpa leaving? Was it my fault? My heart ached for her, but I couldn't stay. Not when my own son still saw his brother as an inconvenience, something to hide when company came around. As we drove away, Danny kept silent for a few blocks until he quietly asked, "Dad, did I mess up the party?" "No way, pal. You didn't mess anything up." Yet, as we headed back home on that cold January afternoon, one thing was loud and clear in my mind. Nothing's going to change. They'll always see Danny as nothing but a bother. It was time to stop hoping they'd come around. On Sunday morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. If Danny isn't accepted here, we'll find those who will embrace him. Over breakfast, I suggested an adventure to Danny. His eyes brightened instantly. "What kind of adventure, Dad?" "The musical kind. Grab your stuff, son. We're off to Nashville." In just a couple of hours, our Honda Civic was packed. Danny's portable keyboard, my old camera, a week's worth of clothes, and a cooler packed with sandwiches like the ones Grace always made for our trips. Danny was bouncing in his seat, more excited than he'd been since Christmas. The 12-hour drive to Nashville gifted us something we hadn't had in ages, a long stretch of uninterrupted time together. Danny belted out every song on the radio, creating harmonies I'd never heard before. Somewhere near Kansas City, he started making up lyrics about highway signs and truck stops, turning our regular drive into something special. "Dad, look at those clouds," he said, pointing out the window. "They look like piano keys." I followed his gaze and grinned. Only Danny could spot music in a January sky. We reached Nashville by Tuesday evening, with the city's neon lights reflecting off the Cumberland River. Broadway Street was alive with honky-tonk music pouring out of every venue. Street performers were everywhere, and tourists snapped photos with guitars and cowboy hats. "It's really loud," Danny noticed, covering his ears as we passed noisy bars. "We'll find somewhere quieter," I assured him. The next morning, we wandered over to Centennial Park, where an old upright piano was tucked under a pavilion, part of Nashville's Play Me, I'm Yours art project. With just a few joggers around, we pretty much had the space to ourselves. "Want to give it a shot?" I asked Danny. He approached the piano like he was reuniting with an old friend. His fingers danced over the keys, transforming Amazing Grace into a melody suited for these Tennessee hills. He kept the soul of the song but added country flair, a sprinkle of twang here, a dash of gospel there. A jogger paused, then a couple walking their dog stopped too. Soon, a small crowd had gathered, phones pulled out to record this unexpected concert. "Kid's got real talent," commented a man in a cowboy hat, introducing himself as a session musician. "Are y'all visiting?" "We're from Denver," I replied, watching Danny lose himself in the music. "We're on a musical journey." When Danny finished, the applause was genuine and warm. Someone tossed a 20 into his keyboard case. A grandmother requested his autograph. A teenager asked for Sweet Caroline, and Danny's country twist got the whole group singing. That night, I uploaded our first video, Danny and Dad's Musical Journey, Day 1. Just a simple clip of Danny at the piano, the Nashville skyline behind him. Music turning strangers into friends. The response was immediate. 100,000 views within a few hours, and comments pouring in from around the globe. "Where to next?" asked someone in Australia. "This is lovely," commented a music teacher from Maine. "Visit more cities, please," urged a viewer from Texas. I glanced at Danny, his nose deep in a book about famous pianists, blissfully oblivious that our little journey was beginning to touch hearts worldwide. Tomorrow, we'd head down to New Orleans, but tonight, after what felt like an eternity, there was this perfect fit, the sensation we were exactly where we should be. We had left Nashville behind, setting out on a southern journey like two musical gypsies, on the hunt for melodies all over the U.S. When we finally arrived in New Orleans, The city welcomed us with jazz rhythms flowing from every part of the French Quarter. Danny stumbled upon a piano at Jackson Square, a place where street performers had gathered for ages. It wasn't long before he was playing along with a trumpet player named Marcus and a drummer everyone called Big Joe. Their impromptu performance quickly attracted such a large crowd that they began to clog up the street. Marcus couldn't believe his ears, shaking his head as he said, "This kid plays like he's been at it forever," as Danny intertwined intricate jazz harmonies into a straightforward tune. That evening, I uploaded a clip with the title, "Danny Plays Jazz in NOLA," and it went viral in ways we couldn't have imagined. By the next morning, it already had 500,000 views, with comments surfacing in languages I couldn't even identify. The hashtag Danny and Dad wasn't just a hit in America, it was making waves globally. Our next stop was Memphis, where the blues of Beale Street were like a siren's call to Danny. He found a street piano at Handy Park and transformed timeless blues into something distinctly his own. The crowd here was different, many older folks who had spent their lives steeping in authentic blues. After Danny finished playing Summertime in an astonishing way, an older man, tears in his eyes, approached him with an old harmonica. "For luck, son, you've got the gift," he said. Chicago presented a new musical adventure in Millennium Park. The classical vibes here pushed Danny to dive into some Chopin, and his performance was so stirring that it even made busy professionals stop in their tracks. Conversation halted. Phones forgotten. Everyone was wrapped in the moment as his fingers danced over a public piano, transforming it into a grand instrument worthy of a concert hall. Danny absorbed something new from every city we visited, like a sponge soaking in music. He picked up jazz from New Orleans, soul from Memphis, and the intricacy of classical music from Chicago. Our fan base went from thousands to millions. Letters from fans arrived at hotels we barely had time to reserve. Major networks reached out for interviews, and there were even offers for donations, which we politely declined. But the magic wasn't just in the performances. It was also found in those intimate moments between gigs, sharing beignets in New Orleans, Danny humming original tunes as I drove through late nights. In hotel rooms, he'd practice silently with headphones, while I replied to emails from people deeply touched by his music. One night in Chicago, he looked over the bright city and said, "Dad, this adventure is amazing. People here really get my music." I responded, "They see who you truly are, kiddo." At just 19, Danny was discovering the world not as a challenge to be overcome, but as a place where he was embraced. His self-assurance bloomed like spring flowers, and watching this transformation filled my heart with pride. Then, out of the blue, we received a life-changing call. "Mr. Sullivan, this is Frederick Harrison from Carnegie Hall. We've been following Danny's progress and would be honored to invite him to play on our main stage." I nearly dropped my phone. "Carnegie Hall, for real?" "Genuine as it gets. We have a slot open on Valentine's Day. Would Danny want to perform?" I turned to Danny, lost in creating new music on his keyboard, crafting beauty out of mere air. "Danny, what do you think about playing at the nation's most iconic concert venue?" He looked up, a gleam of wonder in his eyes, and asked, "Will there be people who truly love music there?" "The very ones who love it best," I assured him. "Then yes, absolutely," he replied. As I sealed the deal with Frederick, I felt a spark of pure joy I hadn't experienced since Grace passed away. We had discovered our community, our purpose, our place in the world. In that instant, nothing else seemed to matter. So everything seemed to be rolling smoothly, right? But then, out of nowhere, things started to crumble. It began with the comments. That night, when we were checking out Danny's latest clip from Chicago, I stumbled across some messages that were different from the usual praise. They were harsh accusations like, "Isn't this child exploitation? Why isn't social services stepping in? And this guy's just using his disabled kid to make a quick buck. Somebody needs to rescue this child from his publicity-hungry father." I frowned. hitting refresh, and there were even more accusations coming up, all from accounts I'd never heard about before. Emergent Truth and Concerned Viewer were all over the place, repeating the same claims over and over on different posts. Here's how it went down. It was morning, and suddenly the comment sections everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, were blowing up with this wave of negativity. It all seemed too coordinated to be a coincidence, right? That's when the media coverage started changing its tune. Denver's Channel 7 ran a follow-up story that buzzed my phone with a headline something like, "Local Dad's Viral Sensation, Boosting Morale or Borderline Unethical." This was the same channel that had just been singing praises about Danny's incredible talent, but suddenly they were questioning my motives. They even brought in specialists on child welfare, talking about the risks of turning a disability into a way to make money. They showed clips of Danny playing the piano, and I just felt my heart drop. It felt like someone was controlling all this negativity, steering the story in this awful direction. It spread like wildfire. Supporters who had been with us from the start began questioning things like, is Danny okay with all this? Does he understand what's happening? While we still had plenty of support, those relentless accusations kept ringing in my mind. Then, out of the blue, I get this call, and my hands start shaking. It's Jennifer Martinez from Colorado's Department of Human Services. She tells me they've had multiple reports about Danny's situation and they're kicking off an investigation. Investigation? I practically croak. Danny's perfectly fine. We're on a musical tour, for crying out loud. Sir, we're concerned about potential exploitation of a vulnerable individual, she explains. We've received several detailed complaints. We need to meet with both you and Danny in 48 hours, or... She doesn't finish, but clearly, it meant they might pursue protective custody for Danny. My head was spinning. Protective custody? That sounds like they want to take Danny away. I explained to her that we're in Chicago, gearing up for a performance at Carnegie Hall. Mr. Sullivan, you need to return to Colorado immediately. This isn't optional. She hung up, leaving me staring at my phone, hoping it would give me some kind of answer. That's when it hit me. The timing of this whole mess, their knowledge of our every move. It had to be someone close, someone who knew us inside and out, who maybe even saw us as competition or a threat. That night, Helen calls from Denver, all stressed out, saying how the locals are suddenly buzzing with wild rumors. They're speculating that Danny's no longer with his family, or that I snatched him away. Pure nonsense. I jumped in. Helen, social services is on us. They might take Danny. Someone's spreading trash about us. She says, I've seen the gossip online, but Emmerich, it's all spreading like wildfire. They don't know the truth. You've got to clear things up, especially why you left during the holidays. I glance over at Danny, immersed in practicing for his Carnegie Hall gig, completely unaware of the chaos brewing around him. I realize Helen's right. To fight these lies, I'd need to come clean with the truth. But that would mean laying bare some ugly family secrets, severing ties for good, and putting Danny above everything else. On January 21st, I was in our Chicago hotel room, staring at my laptop, cursor just above the Go Live button. Danny, lost in his music, had no clue about the chaos that was about to unfold. At exactly 7 p.m., I finally clicked it. The truth about Danny and Dad Live was on. Within moments, people poured in. The chat blew up like crazy. Finally, what's the real story? My hands were a bit shaky, but my voice mostly held steady. Thanks for tuning in. You guys deserve to know why Danny and I are on this path, I said, taking a deep breath before airing it all out. I told them about the drama last Christmas, the messy family life, and how there seemed to be this odd, organized pushback against our success. As I was talking, Danny glanced at the camera, gave a quick smile, and went back to playing his calming music, the ideal backdrop for the hardest conversation of my life. More and more viewers logged in, hitting the 25,000 mark. The chat was buzzing with input. This is so sad. Your family's the worst. Danny deserves better. You're an amazing dad. I showed them screenshots of negative comments. This wasn't just random folks talking. It was an orchestrated attempt to knock us down. And who was behind it? My own family. Simply because we found happiness without them. They couldn't stand that we celebrate Danny's autism rather than hide it. He's not a burden. And though my voice trembled a little, I insisted, he's a gift to the world. No matter where we went, people saw what I saw. A wonderfully gifted young man with a heart of gold. The only ones refusing to see it were those related to us. I looked at Danny, who had been listening while playing all along. Son, could you play that song from our first Christmas together? The one at the community center? Danny beamed, placed his fingers on the keys, and began playing Silent Night, the same enchanting version that started our journey, now even more touching. As the melody flowed, all 50,000 viewers stayed silent online. When Danny finished, the chat erupted with comments. I'm tearing up. That was incredible. Justice for Danny, and shame on those family members. I explained that this is why we travel and perform. Danny deserves to be in a world that acknowledges his worth. If his own family won't, then we'll find one that does. By the time we ended the live stream, over 50,000 people had tuned in, and it spread across social media like wildfire. The truth was out there, way beyond anyone's ability to roll it back. And for the first time since everything started, I genuinely felt relieved. The fallout from the live stream was quick and intense. By morning, it was a viral sensation on every platform. The hashtag #JusticeForDanny was trending everywhere. In Denver, Silas and Scarlett felt the backlash immediately. Silas's marketing firm received loads of complaints from clients threatening to sever ties. One email was direct. We don't want to work with companies that employ people who abandon their disabled family. His co-workers distanced themselves, and within a week, he was quietly placed on indefinite leave. Things weren't better for Scarlett. Her country club friends became distant. Whispers followed Olivia's parents at school. Their perfect suburban facade, built on ignoring Danny, was completely shattered. Meantime, I got a much friendlier call from the Colorado Department of Human Services. Mr. Sullivan, after our review and talking to multiple witnesses, we're closing your case. There's no abuse, just evidence of consistent care. The social services investigation that felt like a dark shadow over us vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Even Carnegie Hall reached out to confirm our Valentine's Day performance with excitement. We're thrilled to have Danny here, said Frederick. This is the performance our stage needs. On February 14th, a clear and crisp day, Danny and I stepped into Carnegie Hall. His eyes widened at the sight of the lush red velvet seats and the elaborate ceiling. Dad, it's like we're inside a music box. It's gorgeous. The venue was packed. Danny, as usual, was totally composed, warming up with the same dedication, whether he was on a prestigious stage or playing on a street corner. As soon as he walked out on that famous stage, the entire crowd jumped to their feet, even before he had the chance to touch the piano. Their applause roared on for a solid 3 minutes. Then, with elegance and poise, he opened with Silent Night, seamlessly moved into amazing grace, and finished with his own creation, Journey Home, a piece he'd crafted during our travels. His music filled every corner of the theater, showing 2,000 people what I'd always known. Danny wasn't limited by disability. He was uniquely gifted. When the final note faded, the audience erupted in applause, with tears streaming down many faces. They didn't sit down for a full 10 minutes. Later backstage, Danny embraced me tightly. Dad, are you happy? He asked. I am, son. We're finally free. Jump ahead 6 months. We'd found our rhythm. Danny performed regularly at venues that embraced his exceptional talents. We made a cozy apartment in Nashville our home, where he could practice without worrying about neighbors who didn't understand. We felt at home in a community of musicians, families connected through autism, and others who saw Danny for who he truly was. Helen visited us, bringing homemade cookies and all the gossip from Denver. She quietly remarked, "Everyone sees now that you did the right thing. Even the people who used to criticize understand now." Seeing how well Danny did changed everything. She paused, then added, "Silas lost his job. Scarlett barely leaves home. Olivia keeps asking about you and Danny." My heart ached for my granddaughter, but I couldn't regret the choices her parents made. That evening, as Danny worked on a new melody inspired by the Nashville skyline, I reflected on our journey. Sometimes you have to step away to find where you truly belong. The family you create might be more vital than the one you start with. "Dad, I'm glad we took this adventure," Danny said, glancing up from his keyboard. "Me too, son. Me too." Outside our window, Nashville buzzed with music. Somewhere, a street performer was captivating tourists and dreamers alike. We'd carved out our niche in this lively community where people knew that being different was a strength, not a weakness. Looking back, I realized God had a plan all along. When Silas reached out that Christmas morning, I thought we were falling apart. But often, what feels like rejection is God guiding you to something better. Don't make the mistake I did for years, waiting for people to accept and love your child as they are. Don't spend precious time hoping family will change when they've shown who they are. For too long, I defended those who saw Danny as a burden rather than the gift he is. Our journey opened my eyes to a universal truth. True family isn't about blood, but about showing up when it matters. Perfect strangers in Nashville, New Orleans, and Chicago embraced Danny, while his own brother preferred he stay hidden. God placed wonderful people in our lives just when we needed them most. If our story sounds familiar, know you're not alone. Stories like ours happen everywhere. Parents and grandparents choosing love over comfort, protection over approval. These stories show us that bravery comes in many forms. Sometimes the most courageous tales come from everyday people making incredible choices for their kids. The biggest lesson? Sometimes walking away from toxic relationships is how you find your true family. God doesn't want us to endure mistreatment for the sake of family loyalty. He asks us to love deeply, protect those who need it, and create spaces where everyone can flourish. Danny and I found our freedom when we stopped seeking acceptance from those who refused to give it. We discovered a world full of kind-hearted people. You just need the courage to go out and find them. Don't wait for someone else's green light to love your child fully. Appreciate, defend, and trust that wonderful things are in store for both of you.